Welcome to In the Black, the podcast that shines a light on resilience, transformation, and the power of reinvention. I'm Araceli, and each week, my co host Shannon and I sit down with incredible women who face some of life's hardest challenges, from personal setbacks to societal obstacles, and have emerged on the other side stronger, driven, and ready to make a difference.
On In the Black, we celebrate these stories of strength and success, diving deep into the journeys of women who turned pain into purpose, adversity into action, and now dedicate themselves to making the world a better place in their own way. They're here to inspire, share hard-earned wisdom, and remind us all, no matter how dark things may seem, life is cyclical, and dawn is coming. So whether you're looking for inspiration, motivation, or just a reminder that change is always possible, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to In the Black.
Today we are visiting with Caroline. Caroline is a woman of extraordinary strength and determination. A survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault, she has transformed her pain into a mission to uplift others. Refusing to let her experiences define her, Caroline has dedicated her life to breaking the silence around sexual violence, empowering survivors to heal, and eliminating the shame that so often holds them back. Fueled by her own journey, Caroline founded a nonprofit organization that provides resources, support, and a safe space for survivors to move forward with their lives. Her work extends beyond offering aid. She actively encourages survivors to speak out, share their stories, and reclaim their voices. Caroline believes that through open dialogue and community support, the stigma surrounding sexual violence can be dismantled, creating a world where survivors are seen, heard, and valued. Thank you for being with us today, Caroline. Can you tell us just a little bit about you and what you're doing right now?
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. It's an honor to get to do the podcast and hang out with you ladies. So thank you so much. I am currently living in Kansas City in the United States, but I travel all over the world and working into what you said with bringing solutions to domestic violence, with amplifying the voices of sexual assault survivors so that people can find the services that they need. Shame only breeds faster and more furiously in silence. And so when people are ready, in whatever capacity they're ready, I want to make sure that we have the mechanisms in place for folks to share their story, lessening that shame, and actually then getting the help they need for what they've been through.
So beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit? Obviously, this kind of stemmed from your own story. Would you mind sharing a little bit of that journey?
Sure. There's a big case right now in the media from a woman in France named Giselle who is actively sharing the story that her husband allowed her to be drugged, was actually doing the drugging, and then allowed other men to rape her. He then taught these other men how to do it to their own wives. So while Giselle is the face of what's happening now, and her husband was just recently convicted, they still have all of the processes of the men who taught other men how to do it. And then those men went home and did that to their loved one as well. And that is my story. So married, about 4 weeks away from being married, but an 8-year relationship to a man that I knew back in high school days, knew back in college days. We were very good friends, lost touch with each other over time, and then reconnected both post our divorces. About 4 weeks away from our wedding, I discovered his secret life on his computer. And he had a nasty habit of publicizing me. He would actually use his marketing skills. He's the senior VP in a major Kansas City corporation. And he would take pictures of me on date nights. And then what I didn't know, without my knowledge and without my consent, for, the entirety of our relationship, it started about 6 weeks in to the relationship, he was posting me on secret sites. And every single email he started, every single post he started, would invite men to come check me out at restaurants. So from my end, he would ask me to get dressed up and he'd take pictures because you're so beautiful, love, and we're going to go out to eat tonight. And what it is that beauty and love and compliments that he so readily gave were part of his marketing that he did to put me out into the universe. Again, without my knowledge and consent, inviting other men to be at the restaurant. So while those emails started with, please come check out my girl, here's what she looks like, they always ended with, and I will facilitate what can be done to her, and she has no idea. Took all that information to the Lee Summit Police Department, which is a suburb of Kansas City, and I reported him. And this was 8 years ago that I discovered this, and I escaped. And I just recently found out that the police did nothing. They didn't file a report. Even though I followed up multiple times on that report they said they were going to file, they never filed a report. So for 8 years, while I've built a worldwide organization to help people with the sole courage of knowing that at least if someone in the Kansas City area reported an incident of, I was at a bar and I woke up the next day violated and I can remember his name, that the pinging of his name in a record system would never have happened. So recently, that just happened at the end of October, discovered that even in my own courage to use my voice, there was nothing that the police were doing to actively keep that person in an awareness should it happen to someone else. And also, when I reported him to the police, I had what amounted to four-drawer file cabinets of evidence. He wasn't doing this just to me. He was doing this when he traveled for work. He was doing this to fellow coworkers that he traveled with. He was doing this to fellow family members. And the police did nothing with that information. So I'm at a little bit of a crossroads. You're catching me at a time when, after building this entire organization, and it is worldwide, we've worked in several different countries, I'm now facing my own choices as how do I pursue this? What do I do? Because what are the possibilities? So I have worked with an organization in Kansas City who's going to help me pursue the consequences of what can be done, not only within the police system, but also within the perpetrator of what was done to me.
I feel like we need to introduce you to our last guest, Bon Tyndall, if you don't know her already. She is a powerhouse, and she is the one who helped out the 200 rape cases in Springfield that were eliminated.
Yeah, that would probably be a good thing to do because I've been very vocal about it, but this actually is probably the last time I'll talk about it because I'm going to go stealth on this matter. I'm going to keep offering the services, keep having a conversation, but I am no longer tipping my hand on what I'm going to do as it relates to pursuing him, as it relates to pursuing the police department. I am not giving up, but I am going stealth in how I do that so that what those plans aren't readily available to any eyes. My security team that I have, because his active threats to kill me were coming in daily during my escape, just let me know recently that he has over 14 different aliases. So who knows who is watching, and who knows who is watching, and who knows, since he also taught other men how to do this, is watching anything that I say or do. So finding out this information is going to be a more stealth version of what I bring into the world, because the amount of damage he's done in 8 years with zero consequence is astronomical. And in my talking about it and creating an organization, I probably only made him smarter. And here I thought all this time that there would be some kind of record, that there would be some kind of justification. And if anybody else experienced this, or anybody even watching or hearing this, or the other 60 podcasts I've done, because he traveled all across the country, that they would maybe have an epiphany of, oh, wow, okay, I think I remember this guy said he was in Kansas City. Something that would allow anyone who was harmed by him to have a record, that a system that he was in, and there's been nothing. So it's time to go stealth in how I proceed from here on out.
Well, this is wild. That is insane that happened to you, and I just want to hear more. So I have no question.
You know, it gets into a great conversation that we can have, because while this happened to me, I am not the only person that this happens to across the world. So many women report or men report and nothing is done. So what this means, if you take my story and drill it down, it means anyone who lives in Lee Summit, Missouri, because this is what I found out their protocol is, that anyone who lives in Lee Summit, Missouri and comes in and reports a sexual assault or a rape, if they don't even have a domestic violence liaison officer talk to that person, which this police department does have one of those. They don't even have somebody who's in their sex crimes unit talk to the person who shows up, which this police force does. What they do is they just bring whoever's the closest to the police department. When that person shows up, they call whatever officer is closest, and they have that person have the conversation with the victim who's come forward. So who knows what kind of training they had? Who knows what kind of protocol that they've followed, because they really don't have one in the police department. So if that officer decides that it might be too risky to pursue the case, that they don't think that this survivor is showing up as their best self, which who shows up as their best self when they're reporting a rape? Who shows up as that? If they decide that in any part of this story is not something that they think is going to be viable, they don't even file a report. They do nothing. And like me, there could be other survivors in this area who showed up to report and were given a case number and someone to call. And I did numerous times, and there wasn't ever a case number. And there wasn't anyone who was going to follow up or even make a note of this person's name within their system. So curious about that, as are a lot of people now, since I've been talking about it at the end of October. And with the right people, I should say, that I've now been talking to since the end of October. That's a really big disservice for anyone who lives within the Kansas City community, for that police department to choose to have a protocol that isn't a protocol. And it's the reason that people might keep from sharing their story. So I want to say, for anyone listening or anyone who watches this at some point, if this has happened to you, you've got to make a choice. And you're worth that choice if it is to speak up. You are worth it. It might take 8+ years until you find out. It might take longer, but a part of my healing, even in knowing that this is what happened, a part of my healing is that I chose to show up. Now that was my choice. I know that other people make different choices. I'm not negating that choice. All choices are valid. But if you are someone that has shown up to report and discover this about you, do what you need to heal. I had some really rough days. Do what you need to heal, and then decide if you want to go forward, and know that if you keep talking, hopefully you keep finding the right person to get in touch with. To that end, one of the things that I did in the very beginning with Safe in Harm's Way is create technology partnerships. So at safeinharmsway.org, we have technology that, first of all, we have a partnership with an organization called End Violence Against Women International. We can give you their tool called Seek Then Speak that allows a person to document what happened to them as it reveals itself in their head. I have flashes of memory. I could tell you what was going on. The things seemed weird in my body for the entire 8 years. Now, I never would have made the assumption of what was happening to me. It was easily excused, right? Like, I worked too hard on the elliptical. I did too many stairs. The anatomy, my female anatomy was swollen and bruised. Well, gosh, did I work out too hard and spin class? Did I not change my underwear fast enough when I got home from being sweaty? Easily things justified, constant yeast infections. Never would have said, I think my boyfriend is drugging me and allowing people to rape me. Never would have thought it. And also he taught people how to clean up the evidence afterwards. Never would have thought anything about that. So if these kinds of things are happening, the Seek Then Speak tool allows people to document what happened as they remembered. It's an entire tool that then people, and you can get it from safeandharmsway.org. It's already on our website. You can document it. You can use that when you go in and you demand to have a nurse educator do the exam, the rape kit. You can use it when you're talking to your physicians. You can use it when you're talking to police, because it allows you to go through and remember the things when you're having multiple conversations. So Seek Then Speak is something that we do at Safe and Harm's Way because it was something I needed at the very beginning when I started reporting. And so I thought, when I created Safe and Harm's Way, it was, what do I need to bring that I didn't have? Seek Then Speak provides that. The other tool we have is called Victim's Voice. Victim's Voice allows you to document your every form of abuse. Seek Then Speak is strictly for sexual assault. Victim's Voice is for everything, including sexual assault. So you can start documenting the people you talk to, the dates, the times, and it's in court admissible format. Now, I didn't have it then. What I had, as I said, was 4 file cabinets and my date and time stamp of who I talked to. That's not admissible into court. So people think, I'm going to write this in a notebook. I'm going to put the name. I'm going to put the phone number. I'm going to date and time stamp the entry, and that's going to be part of anything I take to court. It's not admissible. Victim's Voice is the only online technology that allows people to document the abuse they're experiencing in real time, that also meets all the criteria for things to be court admitted. So we have those two tools that would allow people, wherever they're at in their journey. I'm going to be using Victim's Voice from here on out. I didn't have it back then. I haven't needed it since, because I didn't know I needed it since, but now I'll be using Victim's Voice to document every single thing and who I talk to and when. And those are the tools. Again, the reason that I decided to be vocal, and the reason I'm saying your choice is to be vocal, is because I know personally that healed me. And I know that we've created tools and technology to give that resource to other people. Even if you choose not to report in the immediacy, you can still use those tools, because based on statute of limitations, you could have your entirety of your life before you decide to pursue. And those tools will be there to help you remember what happened in the years prior. So as much as I was angry, I thought, well, I got the tools now. So that's going to be how I proceed personally in moving forward, to create a consequence and to hopefully protect other people. And I can at least sleep at night knowing that I did everything in my power to try to keep him from harming others. And I'll continue, because he doesn't get to. Again, my choice. Maybe people don't want to pursue that themselves, but I'm not resting.
I think it's amazing that you're putting together something for other victims, even in the midst of your own journey, and discovering that this has happened and that it has not been taken seriously. And I think that is something that a lot of victims do find. And I know that we've had discussions on this podcast already about people who were not taken seriously. And in my own journey, I think the Victim's Voice could have helped my kids a lot earlier in our journey in trying to get custody of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's incredible, because I didn't know how to make it court approved. And so I was just keeping a journal. I thought that's what you're supposed to do. These are the dates that this happened, and these are what happened. And none of that was admissible in court. So by the time 10 years passed before I got full custody, 11 years passed before I got full custody. It was 8 years when the state took my kids from him. And in that time, there had been 11 hotline calls, and so many times where I was like, this is not right. This is not right. This is not right. But my journal entries were not admissible. So the only thing that was admissible was like an 8-month time period where I had a counselor who cared enough to say, you need to be emailing that to yourself when it happens so that there's a timestamp that can be proven.
Yes.
And so thankfully she said that, and we had 8 months of evidence, which was enough for me to get full custody of my kids.
Thank you for sharing that with me. That's a really, we at Safe and Harm's Way, we talk a lot about the court system being a secondary form of abuse. And we have a new content creator that'll be starting this year. And her name is Sybil Cummins. She's out of Colorado, and she helps change legislation. I mean, she's a powerhouse woman. This is her field. This is where she does it. And she's going to be writing about that so we can help other people navigating the court system, like you just talked about, to have better outcomes. In the state of Missouri, we call it a win when, even when there is abuse present, that custody might only be 50-50. 50-50 is a win in documented abuse. So we're going to work to change that with Sybil coming on board. Again, she's nationwide with the work that she does, even though she's based out in Colorado, and she's going to be helping people navigate that and use our technology to the fullest extent to help that. And thank you so much for sharing, because I know you know this, you're not alone either, right? I mean, it's part of the equation, and people so callously, it seems callous to me, but it's just not an awareness of, well, why don't they just leave? Would you ever want to give 50% of custody to someone that is horrific? You'd rather stay to be a shield. It's just, there's so many components of that it's really difficult to navigate. And when you share your story like you just did, then you lessen that shame for somebody else. So thank you for sharing that today with me. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
I didn't expect this story, and it's just like mind-blowing me. What was the most difficult aspect of the challenge you faced? Was it external circumstances, internal struggles, or a combination of both? And the only reason I ask that is because I'm still trying to wrap my head around, like, what just happened to you and how long did that happen for? And you knew this guy for a long time. Just still trying to wrap my head around.
That's okay. I can
the
answer the
story.
question. And the difficulties of navigating what happened to me, it was, I remember discovering his secret life. I remember discovering more than just me, all of these people that he'd harmed. And it was so appalling. I thought, well, surely this is all spam or something. Like, this can't be real, because your mind can't comprehend what you're reading. And so for me, the biggest challenge was, and this is what I teach people now when I work with people, or in the course of the time that I've done Safe and Harm's Way, I'm now at 176,000 people that I've been able to speak directly in front of. That doesn't include all our campaigns that we start in Times Square and then send in video screens across the country. If I look at that, that's 1 billion impressions. But what I teach people is to regulate their nervous system, which what I needed to do. Because when you start talking to people, it's both an internal, what the heck am I doing? And it's so fear-based. And for me, I was getting daily text messages of, once I escaped, of, don't worry, sweet pea, I'll find you and we'll die together. So fear, and the way that I documented fear was, I spent almost 3 decades in pharmaceutical sales, and I trained in Fortune 500 companies. I trained salespeople how to be excellent, and I used my sales skills. And so that's what I teach people now. So it's a 3-pronged step, and the step starts with, hey, I'm Caroline. It's something horrific happened to me, and I'm very scared. Can you help me with this? Get the confirmation that they can. Thank you. Here's what I need from you. And list the top 3 things. Any more than that, people flake. So the top 3 things. What do you think I should do first? get that feedback. And then, go through what would you do next, and thank them at each way. Thank them at each way, at each point that you're asking. And then when you're done, say, given what we talked about today, who do you think you should introduce me to next so I can keep having this conversation? And then thank them again and close with, is it okay for me to be following up with you? And so it's introducing yourself, but you have to add the tagline of, I am very scared and I can use your help, please. Because people do want to respond when you say, I could use your help, please. People are inclined to at least give you something. And if you can thank them along the way, think about first responders, think about people in hospitals. Nobody gets thanked. I even encourage people afterwards to write a thank you letter and say, hey, we talked about these things. I thank you for having that conversation with me. Pop it in the mail. I used to go to the dollar store and I'd bake brownies, and I'd get a dollar brownie mix and a $1 aluminum foil tin because I had absolutely zero money, and I would write a thank you note and I would drop it off at the police station or at the receptionist of the doctor who helped me. Regulating my internal system with having a step in process, that it became automatic, that this is what I did over and over and over again, allowed my body to stay calm. Ice water, a ton of ice water. I was never without a water bottle, because that calms down your vagus nerve and allows your body to then process what you're going to do. Deep breathing exercises, did a lot of those. If there was a meditation on YouTube to watch, I watched it. I did all of those things to regulate my nervous system. That allowed me to not only internally face what I was fearing, but it also allowed me externally to show up in the world in a way that people would listen to me. And this next part's gonna sound horrible. When I showed up as a screaming, crying mess, which was the appropriate reaction to the insanity of what I had discovered had happened to me, nobody listened.
It's the Gabby Petito effect.
Yep. Nobody listened. So I quickly figured out, if I'm gonna make this happen, I've got to figure out how to regulate myself. I had an interview once with a magazine, and he said, so you actually teach people how to regulate their nervous system to report a crime? I'm like, for women, I have to. If I don't teach women how to regulate their nervous systems when they go to report what had happened to them, they can be the most amazing, stellar humans. Everyone is. Everyone is. There's not a survivor I've met that is not highly intelligent, empathetic, gets things done, and always wins. And then they're put in the situation, and they, rightfully so, lose their mind, and no one listens. So that's part of what I teach when I'm in front of people, depending on what they've asked for in the speech. But that's always something, not only for the people who've experienced crime, but for the people who haven't, but they love somebody, or they work with somebody, or they know somebody in community, that they can show up better. So when the person seems like they're losing their mind, that doesn't scare your best friend. Your best friend leans in and go, I'm here for you. Let's take a deep breath together. Let's talk about this together. And I only know that because that's what people did for me. If somebody doesn't have anybody doing that for them, they don't know that it's okay for them to be upset with what happened to them. And then they stop speaking because maybe somebody doesn't give them the reaction they want. There's a statistic that's in the latest one of came out in 2020. This particular statistic that says it's almost up to 48% of women in this country will be sexually assaulted in some form.
I've seen that.
When they decide to report, they tell their best friend. They don't call anybody else. They don't go to the hospital. They tell their best friend. So if that best friend says, I never liked that guy. What was wrong with you? Why did you stay with him? Or, I told you to leave the party with me. I don't know why you stayed. Or, well, why did you go to the football game and get drunk with all your friends? That person will never speak about it again for at least 3 decades. We're losing generations of women. And to be honest, we're going to be losing generations of men, because the statistics for men in this country as of 2020 related to sexual assault is almost 30%. And I want to be clear, that is not some kind of statistic coming from one particular category of people. It is heterosexual men raping other heterosexual men because the reason they think of what I could do to possibly degrade this person so much is rape. And that is going at a higher rate for men now as it is women. So if we don't speak to friends, family, and coworkers about how to respond to someone in as a trauma response, then people don't speak again. But I'm also here to tell you, if we're looking at those statistics, you could be talking to a fellow survivor who's never addressed what happened to them. We have to have these conversations around sexual assault. We have to have these conversations around not only for men, but for women, but for men. Because if we don't start talking about how to receive people when they come to you, then we lose people. And we lose people not only to their life, we lose people to drugs and alcohol. We lose people to shame and silence. We lose people to self-harm. We lose people to financial detriment. It has to be where we teach people how to respond, and that we provide the technology that allows people to report, and we provide a mechanisms for people to regulate their nervous systems so that they can keep having the conversation that brings them the most healing.
Absolutely. You're obviously speaking to people who have been through the ringer a little bit, and so I can definitely relate. And I think in my discussions with women, I told my mom a few years ago, I was like, I feel like that statistic is so low. I feel like it's like 90% of the women that I have talked to have been sexually assaulted.
Yes.
And it's interesting because even in studies like that, I think that it is skewed toward the silence.
Agreed. 48% is even low. If you really want to, you're so right. I recently had the very big privilege of getting to travel through Europe for about 3 weeks. And the people that I traveled with at one point along the journey, we sat down to dinner and one of them said, I just have to make a comment. I don't know how you do this. Carolyn, I don't. We have traveled with you. There's about 6 of us. He said, there is not a place we've gone that you just don't say, you know, I started and founded a nonprofit that helps people navigate domestic violence. I lead with that. Otherwise, even domestic violence can make people back up. So I say some version of violence in their relationships, being harmed by the people who claim to love them. And he says, it doesn't matter how you say it. Everybody shares their story with you. He said, from our tour guides to the people we meet in line, to the waitress at the restaurant, to the meetings that we've taken with key people. You say that, and everyone, man or woman, shares their story with you. We are looking at, and God bless him, he's my dearest friend, he's like, this is an epidemic. I'm like, this is what I do. I know that. But people are genuinely shocked when you talk about, and it's easy to dismiss those statistics because they're so big, and people feel safer and deflect when they're like, well, sure, I don't know anybody like that. That's just the anomaly. No, you do. You do know people like that.
I was just thinking, Shannon, that's how we can get more guests on the episode, just going out to dinner and mentioning what we do. So this happened to you, and you said things have been unraveling. And how long ago did you start the nonprofit?
So I discovered what my fiance was doing to me without my knowledge and without my consent in March of 2016. I have always been a writer, so I started writing about it in fall of 2016. I knew I wanted to create something. If you want to go, it's just strictly by when things were submitted to the government. 2018 as an LLC, and then decided to make it a nonprofit. That nonprofit, we were fiscally sponsored for several years, but the official nonprofit date is the early part of 2020 is when we received our original official nonprofit designation. But in some capacity, either through an app or a website or as an LLC, we've been functioning at Safe in Harm's Way since 2017.
Are you still in pharmaceuticals, or is this your full-time?
I left pharmaceuticals in 2022, so this is my full-time gig.
So obviously, as you're going through this challenge of discovering your fiance was not at all who you thought he was, and basically your entire life turning upside down, I'd imagine. And you take it to your creativity, which so many of us do, and you start healing through that. How did that kind of transition into the work that you're doing now? If you could take us kind of step by step, how that turned into your passion and the purpose that you lead with right now.
I have always had at different points in my life what I would create a team. Sometimes it was the 8 smartest people, sometimes it was the 10 smartest people. Who do I know that can help me with the right now? And I picked 8 smartest people as I was navigating the discovery of 2016. And those people all pointed to one of my favorite quotes that my mentor Al gave me. And he said, Caroline, your entire career in pharmaceuticals, with what you've done on national stages with worldwide corporations, is going to be junior high compared to what you're going to be able to do, taking those skills and ability and applying it to what you want to do to help fellow survivors. And that is actually the steps that I started doing. It's the networking. I am my father's daughter. I am Ron Markel's daughter. And my dad was a connector. So connecting and the whole, the strategy I went through on how to show up and who do you think I should talk to next was my close on every single question that I had with people, because that put me in contact with the next people who put me in contact with the next people. So it was really a networking thing of showing up authentically as myself. And that led me to meeting more people who then introduced me to more people who then introduced me to more people. And it was just the continuation of that at every step and deciding, okay, pivoting along the way, because I am an oldest firstborn. So I like to know everything before I walk into a room. And here I was going to be jumping off the high dive into nonprofit world and didn't know how deep the pool was or even how to swim in it. And so I was willing to make mistakes along the way, and I have made several mistakes along the way. And that was also a growing process for me, to be able to look at those mistakes and say, I learned something rather than mistakes. Although, I mean, you can tell by my language, I still refer to it as such. It was to keep going, even in the face of those. And one of the things that we deal with now is there's funding being pulled in every direction. Donations are at an all-time low. So I'm continuing to do what I did in the very beginning, which is pursue in-kind donations, pursue corporations with the mission of Safe in Harm's Way. And so right now I manage a budget of almost 4.2 million in in-kind donations of companies who offer their services. So I can dream up a campaign of how I want to reach survivors and the tools I wanted to do it. And through connections, through knowing, continuing to ask that question, who should I talk to next? We are now being sponsored fiscally by a company called Neon, who are the most incredible humans on this earth. I have yet to meet any more humans stellar than them. And they are part of IPG International, which is an international marketing company, cool enough in pharmaceutical marketing. And didn't know them from my pharmaceutical days. But Neon takes the dream I have and then makes it come true. I come up with something, and I'll even draw sketches, and I'll make a playlist, and they will take my rudimentary stick figure drawings and make it incredible. So it's something through that. Our latest campaign was called Hidden Monsters, that talked about monsters hiding in plain sight. And it was through that latest campaign that we've had advocates from the country of Bermuda reach out. So we've taken our campaign that we ran in the United States, and let me explain a second for our campaign. So we look at data. I'm a data geek. That's the pharmaceutical side of me. We look at data, and we know statistically from across the country that the number one way that women will die in pregnancy in the United States is at the hands of their baby's dad. So we target the data where have I spoken? Where is the highest percentage of pregnancies currently going on in the United States? Where are the office building of high-rise office buildings for OBGYNs in those data? And we take those high-rise office buildings that run video screens, and we take our services and we put them on video screens so that when the pregnant people ride the elevator up and down to their doctor, they don't have to look for our services, because if they are under power and control from their abuser, they don't even have a chance to look for services or to know that they're available. But if we bring it to video screens, we bring it to gas stations, we bring it to the elevator, we bring it to billboards in Times Square and then across the country. So if they're picking up a prescription, or they're pumping their gas, or they're just driving down the street, our solutions are going to be in billboards on video screens with the call to action that they can immediately find solutions that meet their needs and hopefully protect themselves and their babies. We do that with Indigenous people because there's a high rate of domestic violence within on reservations, on Native American Indian reservations. So we target the resources there. We go where historically marginalized people face the biggest disparities with economics, transportation, and mobility, and we bring the solutions there so they don't have to look. They don't have to figure out a keyword to search. And then we've built the only system in the United States that allows people to self-identify, takes a little patient, I call it a patient journey, takes a little journey, identifies, and then gets two immediate solutions they can take care of right now. And it's built for men, it's built for women, it's built for people of color, people in the queer community, English as a second language, and those people who are medically compromised. They self-identify through a series of questions of what their most immediate needs are and who they are in their own personal world. And then we give them the solutions that they need immediately, because we know if they call the domestic violence shelter hotline, 40% of those calls don't ever get answered. So if they can take this journey online and find our solutions, they've got immediate step. And so that was a part of the evolution of what Neon helped us build. We've, again, through connections, we are now in 14 states across the country. So if somebody is in service in a shelter, if they were one of the lucky few who got a bed, or if they called that shelter's hotline and that shelter is communicating with them, even though they're not in residence, or maybe that person is getting therapy through the shelter, we are part of looped solutions. So on the back end, to keep everybody safe, both the advocate and both the person facing abuse, it's all online and it's hidden from abusers, and Safe and Harm's Way Solutions is in 14 states now, with our things secretly delivered to people to find the solutions they need that they can do online in the comfort of their own home and in those private moments.
That's so awesome. So I'm curious, taking you back to your own personal journey. I know that's a little bit more challenging probably to speak on than your nonprofit that you've built. But what are some things that you did personally as you're going through that journey? So I'm sure there were moments when you felt like giving up, or when it felt like it was too hard. You kind of alluded to that earlier. So in those moments when you were facing those challenges and you're like, this is too much, I can't keep going, what are some things that got you through that?
My friendships are stellar. I come from friendships that I've had still from kindergarten on. I had stellar humans in my life. I know that people don't have stellar humans in my life, and I faced that as well. And I had to become very okay with walking away from the people who no longer fit me. And that's hard because survivors internalize it. Well, what do I do? Well, maybe if I just communicated a little differently from them, they'd be more kind. It's why we stay, right? It's why all of the things. So I had to be okay with letting people go. And I had to be okay with not trying to fix that. I got the help when I needed it. I immediately went to therapy. I know that I have a privilege in that I have insurance that paid for that therapy. There's other ways out there to find therapy at discounted rates or prorated rates. It also is completely fine to ask a therapist. I've had so many therapists tell me this. Ask for a cash paying price. Ask for, some kind of prorated price that would maybe be able to be based on your income, allow you to do that work. I did that hard work. I did that hard work when it was painful. I did the hard work when I would rather, and often was, curled up in a ball on the couch or on the floor of a bathroom. That was also, like, it just was cold. It was comforting to me. But I kept talking about it. Even if I backed off in some ways, I still was writing about it. That's what worked for me. And the more people I talk to, I wish people could find a way as an outlet. Maybe it's walking, maybe it's writing, maybe it's art, maybe it's deciding to start running, do a couch to 5K. Move your body and engage your brain so that you can make the choice on what you want to do next. The times I wanted to stop, I mainly kept going for other people. So I thought about that a lot on how I decided to do it that way, that really it would have been cool if I had done it for myself. I wasn't there yet. I did it for his former wife. I did it for his daughter. I did it for my friends who I knew had experienced similar things in their own world and had never spoken about it. I did it for other people so that I could heal myself. And now I'm doing it for myself in addition to the other people. But I actually had to focus. I was just talking with one of my children about this, and she said, Mom, in the past year, and think of, I'm going to be 9 years out in March. In the past year, you have seemed so much lighter, like a weight has been lifted. And it's because I actually did the additional therapy of uncovering the things, especially as it relates to sexual assault, that are super hard to say out loud. And I did that through Moxa in Kansas City. If I could, my ultimate dream someday is to franchise them across the country. But they're amazing and stellar humans, and I did it. I also did it by drinking too much wine and too much Xanax, and that was not healthy. So I got the help I needed for that. I did that by, I know I made jalapeno crunchers, potato chips, a food group in and of itself. I kept getting help. Okay, let's do Weight Watchers. Okay, let's work with people who, Alcoholics Anonymous. Let's step down off the Xanax. I kept doing it even when it was hard. And I want to say that because on those hard days, and I've talked about this quite a bit, you can have 20 great days in a row and then a 3-day weekend where you stay in bed, and that's all still healing. That 3-day weekend in bed is still healing. So keep doing it is one of the things that I think that I know helped me, and not working really hard to not shame myself, because I can look back now and think, oh my God, I drank way too much, and that's painful. But I got the help I needed. So I reversed that. Now I'm like, hey, I got the help I needed because I drank too much, which sounds better than the shame-filled beginning of the sentence in the reverse. And those kinds of things are important to talk about, because I want people to know that this journey is also filled with brilliance. When you get the help you need, I have a great sex life. When you get the help you need, you also regulate your nervous system more regularly in other areas. When you get the help you need, you have fuller relationships, you have time with your children, you enjoy, you have friends. When you start to walk away from those friends that maybe wanted to squash you or maybe just didn't believe you, I'd like to raise my hand right now and say, if ever a friend says, you know what, he's always been a nice guy to me. No, that is not your friend. Don't justify it. That is not your friend. When you're willing to walk away from people, the people that take their place, because you've started to identify who feels good to you, who feels safe to you, the right people take their place. But it doesn't happen until you walk away from the people that you should. And I am still 8 years out walking away from people because I'm like, my nervous system has gotten to the point that I can feel you coming a mile away and I'm not doing it. It doesn't mean that you're going to forever be walking away from people, but you're going to be walking away from the right people so that the best people can come take their place. And that's something that really I had to get used to doing, that I wish everybody knew was a normal part of the healing process, whether it's domestic violence or whether it's sexual assault or whether it's some other trauma you've experienced or just your own life journey. If you've had historical friends who hurt you, and even when you say that's not cool, like don't treat me like that, continue, walk away. Guarantee you the best people take their place. Hands down, the best people take their place. And it was that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest flex. And in this time between today and when we're recording this, which is the end of December, and the end of October, when I found out that nothing was done with my report, that's been an upheaval. I had to make some big decisions. And it is going to look differently from here on out at Safe in Harm's Way, because I'm adding more resources that directly address this. It's going to look different for me and how I talk because I'm going stealth. I'm writing about it. I'm going to put one more thing out there. I'm going to share it broadly. I'm going to share it often, but it's going to be date stamped of I'm not anymore, because no one will know what I'm doing, but I'm going to be pursuing it. And that's, I think, the part that all of it for folks to know. I want to say it loud and clear. In all of these things we've talked about today, there is beauty and travel and great sex and fun relationships and happiness when you keep doing the right things. Hell, you can go on YouTube for free and find a ton of people willing to tell you how they did it as well. You can go to Safe in Harm's Way and read all about the survivors that we profile who've done it as well. People can rise above it, and people can create a great life. And I think there's a beauty in what it makes you in the after.
I feel like you're just nailing every single question we have to ask you. Also, I don't know if the universe will align us working together in some way or some small way in the future, but what you're doing is incredible. So looking back, is there anything you wish you had known earlier in your journey that might help someone else on a similar path?
Mm-hmm. I do. And if we could create a marching band and fireworks around this next section, I wish I had known from the time that I was a very little girl that my feelings mattered, that what I wanted out of the world mattered, that if anyone tried to squash those feelings, they weren't for me, that it was not my job to fix them. It was not my job to state the case for why I should be treated the way I want to be treated. Never, not ever. And I have been sitting at tables meant to squash me for as long as I can remember. And so I look back at the evolution, I think, well, no wonder I ended, because I wouldn't even identified, I didn't know what his secret life was. I didn't know he was doing this to me. I would have never even identified as being in a domestic violence relationship with him, because his insanity, his violence, whether it was screaming and yelling at me or shaking me through, chasing me through the house, and me barricading myself in a bathroom door, or him throwing the towels off the table because I didn't fold them right, or anything. I had somehow normalized that as love. Those things don't go hand in hand. We don't have to fix the people who claim to love us, yet we're crying in the next room. We don't have to sit in our driveways before we go home and think, how am I going to handle tonight?
I tell my kids a lot, love does not look like fear, and love does not look like pain. And I think that's such an important thing that we're, even in the schools, I remember, this is so random, but my daughter was being harassed by this little boy, and they were maybe first grade, maybe second grade. And I mean, over and over and over again. And I had been to the school, talked to the principal, all sorts of stuff. And finally I was like, all right, You're allowed to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, well, the teacher says that he just chases me and pushes me because he likes me. I lost my shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in there and I was like, you need to educate your teacher, because physical violence is never because someone likes or loves you. So anyway, Ash ended up pummeling that kid and getting in trouble with the school. And so when I went into the office, I high-fived her in front of them and said, would you like to go out for root beer floats or ice cream? And they were just like flabbergasted that she wasn't in trouble, but we had done everything. And I mean, it had been probably 7 times that we had been to the school talking about this particular child. And I was done.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to know it was okay for her to be done, that she
Yes.
deserved to be treated better than that. And I remember that being a very pivotal moment in my own healing, because I had been putting up with things from people. And I was like, why am I doing that if I would never expect my child to do that?
Agreed.
And so, yeah, that's what that
That
meant.
is rock star level mama-ing. You know, we have to teach our kids that. We have to, even if they can't label it. I mean, if someone doesn't make you feel good, if you walk into a room and maybe it's a comment, or maybe you don't have to second guess yourself. Oh, it's just me. Maybe I'm having a bad day. No, if someone causes a reaction in your body, your brain and your nervous system are processing millions of data in seconds every time you're awake, and even at night when you're sleeping. So if your brain sends you some kind of message, listen to it. It's kind of, I was reading this, and I think it's the coolest thing, and I've read it in several places. And you're heading out the door, and you're in a hurry, and you're thinking, I left the sink on in the bathroom, and your brain goes, no, I didn't. You didn't leave the sink on in the bathroom. And you get out to your car, and you don't have your keys. Your brain is processing information so much, it doesn't know how to say you left your keys in the bathroom, but it does know how to say you left the sink running. That's easier. So if your brain and your body are telling you something, pause, address it. You're never wrong. The more you listen to your body and your brain and your gut and the back of your neck, for me, it's always my ears. If my ears are on fire, man, there is somebody bad in the room. Listen to your body and walk away. And we need to stop telling kids, go kiss and hug whoever. No, if they don't want to, they don't have to, especially little girls. So those are the things I wish I would have known when I was a little girl. I get to do it all over again with grandchildren now. And it's wonderful to just honor their brains and their bodies and say, yeah, you're doing good. And no, no, you don't have to.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely love that. When we learn to listen to ourselves and be our own authentic self, our lives get tremendously better. And
Exactly.
so that's beautiful. Well, we are running out of time. So I do want to ask the last question. Obviously, the name of our podcast is In the Black, and we are talking about being in a positive place. So it's a spinoff of the financial term in the black. So when you think about being in the black in your own personal life, what does that mean for you?
For me, it means that I am being authentic and I am seeking out joy, because there's so much darkness that you can get enveloped in if you don't actively seek out the joy. So I know that I'm in black when I'm being my authentic self, and when I'm honoring what that looks like, and when I am actually seeking out the joy in every single situation.
How do you envision your work and impact growing in the future? What's next on your journey?
What's next on my journey is actually taking an extra level for survivors to be able to recoup financially after they've left, and to be able to take what they have as their own form of genius, as their own form of whatever they're good at, and amplifying it to the extent that it can be monetized and they can find different solutions. Really looking at virtual scenarios, because we have some technology at Safe in Harm's Way that allows people to erase themselves from the internet, and that keeps them more safe. And so if we can be location free, that anybody can live anywhere, then we can start to recoup that financial loss. Statistically, it says that females lose about $123,000 from navigating in their income from navigating violence in a relationship. I can personally say you could multiply that by about 6 for me. And so how do I recoup financially? And then how, as I've been doing it and I've been creating it, how do I take that then to others? So we'll amplify our technology at Safe and Harm's Way. I'll be going stealth on a few things, but we'll amplify also the ability for people to be more financially more financially in the black. And we'll have them the ability to craft the life that they can also start to dream bigger and better than they ever have before.
I had never heard that statistic, but I will say that just between my attorney fees and hospital bills, it is at least triple that. And that's not income lost from not being able to work or anything else.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is powerful. That's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
excited. And where can our listeners find you?
So people can find us at safeandharmsway.org, and all the solutions are there. If you want to get to know me personally, you can go to carolinemarkel.com, and that's CarolineMarkel.com. So that site's being revamped. Everything's being revamped in the face of the end of October because things are going to change a little bit to create the consequences that need to happen. But yeah, we're currently online in those two places. And we have a YouTube channel. We have Spotify links. You can, search me from Caroline Markel or Safe and Harm's Way. Find us on YouTube. Find us on Spotify. Find us on Instagram, on Facebook, and connect with us there for the ideas and solutions that can help in a myriad of ways for whatever it is you're facing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been wonderful getting to know a little bit more about what you do. And Lauren told me about you. I was very excited, but I think that I can connect you with some people, and I think that it's going to be pretty awesome to see where things go from here.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of In the Black. I hope today's story left you feeling inspired and reminded of the incredible strength that lies in each of us. Our guest today has taken her toughest challenges and transformed them into something beautiful, reminding us all that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way to find light in the world.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and share In the Black with another woman who could use a little encouragement. Together, we're building a community of passion, purpose, and power. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and remember, your story matters. Your choices change things, and being your most authentic self can and will change the world around you.